Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about a new player that's reaching the flight simulation field, hopefully with our support. Stick around guys, you're going to find out more about the WYRIX Flight Sim joysticks. Stick around. If you are interested in any of my tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below. Alright you guys, whether or not you choose to help support this project or not, I recommend you stick around as this is very exciting times for flight simulation. There really isn't a better time to be a part of this community, especially with all the new innovations that have happened just over the last few years, and with now once again new players starting to reach the field. This is the best. The reason why I am always announcing Kickstart programs like this and new people who are, or new teams I should say, who are trying to get into the flight sim community is because I had a friend of mine once tell me a wonderful quote, and that is that competition inspires innovation. So the more competition we have, the more developers are going to think outside the box, the more that prices are going to be competitive, and the more options and availability we're going to have to our flight simulation needs. So stick around, let's check out, we have a couple of videos, or a video, excuse me, to watch as a demo of this new product that is, trying to get its way into the field of flight simulation, and then we're going to go down and break each item down through its documentation here. This is pretty cool stuff. I'm going to give you guys my pros and my cons to the developers when you guys see this. I hope you guys see this. Hopefully you guys will take the feedback as nothing but positive criticism and, what my thoughts really are. So, let's get after this. So, first, let's just start out by watching the video. You guys can see the overall design right there reminds me immediately of, and you as well, I'm sure, there's quite a few flight sticks that look very similar to this. You can definitely see that the design aspect is very close to that. For example, the Thrustmaster Warthog. We've seen something similar from Moza. We've seen something similar, well, kind of, from Virpil, but not really. Actually, the more I think about it. But we've seen this design before. However, it sort of comes back, the way I look at the flight stick is, it sort of comes back to, if it works, don't break it. The throttle is a much different configuration than really anything we've seen. It is a solid flat plane push and reverse. I guess as you guys can see, the idea behind it is based on the F-35. So you don't have that rotational axis with this one. It's just that full slide forward and back, but it's got a long axis on it. And the long axis is actually a really good thing. That gives you more control and finite tuning of the engine power, so that is a good thing. Alright, so this project is 4% of its goal. You guys can see they're looking for 230,000. That's not uncommon, guys. I remember Virpil's was also pretty high when they did their Yoke Kickstart program. So coming down, you have a little bit of project history. There will be a link to this obviously down in the description below, guys, if you guys are interested in backing this program. This was a team that of flight sim enthusiasts that had, always loved aviation as a kid. And then, sounds like after graduating college, they sort of came together, reunited. They didn't really find anything that was for the beginner as well. And that's what's interesting about this is they actually specify this. So check this out. I was actually pretty impressed by this line. It gives me sort of an idea of what they're going for. But the industry didn't create a perfect flight grip catered to the needs of experienced sim pilots like us. That's why we decided to create it ourselves. So, we spent months making designs, testing every detail, consulting with aviation professionals. Finally, the WYRIX 35G flight grip and WYRIX 35T throttle are ready to provide a cockpit experience. So, let's look at the grip. As I said, the grip looks very, very familiar. It's very, very similar to that of, say, the Thrustmaster Warthog. However, there are quite a few differences that stand out. Although the overall button control is very close, you can see that you have the hat on the forward index finger as well as the master mode switch is what I'm designating it as at the moment until we have better verbiage for this. Where the Warthog only has the one button, and then the other thing that you typically only see on the index finger, you either see the button or you'll see like a 3-position button on the index finger that goes up and down, and then you have a depress. Okay, but you don't normally see both, so that's kind of a cool addition there. And the master mode switch is definitely a critical thing. Makes it very handy depending on what kind of aircraft you're flying. Now, I will say this is definitely targeted to those who are more into the combat sim, but I want to emphasize that even today, with all the cool material and flight control systems that I have, I fly primarily with HOTAS, and the reason why I do that is because it makes it very, very simple and seamless to switch between general aviation to commercial to helicopters to fixed wing to jets, going from Microsoft Flight Simulator to DCS World, even some space simming. The HOTAS is definitely, I think, the best option for the all-around pilot. If you are a pilot who likes to fly a little bit of everything, you know, you don't have that mind lock, if you will, on a specific type of aircraft, but you like to just get out. If it flies, you want to be a part of it. The HOTAS, I think, is the best way to go. I will always stand by that. For someone who doesn't have the budget to buy 219,000 different peripherals, or someone who doesn't want to be constantly swapping things out, right? It really just depends on what your situation is. But if you are someone who needs one unit that does it all, HOTAS is the way to go. Like I've seen guys struggling. They make it work. By gosh, they make it work. But I've seen some pilots using a yoke to fly a helicopter, for example. That has to be really weird mentally, like to me. Reliable construction, the high quality assembly of durable materials. You can actively use the WYRIX 35G grip to play. Be sure it will withstand any load and will stay functional for many years. Any load, like, careful with that. I'll stand on the desk and I'll yank that sucker. I'm just kidding. Let's see here. Here's the other thing, actually, that I wanted to point about the grip. So it's got the overall design as far as button functionality of like the A10, but it's got what looks like the ergonomics of almost like the Hornet. You can see it's got that curvature moving forward, and they did say this is based on the F-35, and admittedly, I actually haven't seen the grip of an F-35, so guilty as charged there. The one thing that I do hope is with their collar here, I hope that they have thought about, and we're going to keep coming down here, I hope they have thought about the idea of it being able to be used with other bases. For example, Virpil's CM3 base. You know, I hope that they've given the option to take just the grip, if you want, and use it on multiple products. I think that would be a great marketing point for them. And again, you guys can see at the same time the 4-way buttons will help you regulate pressing the force according to personal requests. There are also 3 spring alternatives with different thicknesses at your disposal. Furthermore, replacement will provide a choice of, force in all directions. Premium materials. The grip body is made of a premium plastic, so it's a plastic grip, and metal parts are produced from the aviation aluminum. This structure is key to the safety and functionality of the product. That's great. The brake lever is a milled aluminum. So you got the brake lever they're referring to, the pinky switch right there. You guys can see it on the screen right there coming up. Maximum realism. This is the interesting part. Clear tactile feedback from the trigger with 2 levels of pressing guarantee precision control. So 2 levels, basically it's a 2-stage trigger. You have, and that's very similar for the A10. For those of you who don't know, when the A10 comes in for its famous gun run, right? It'll bring the nose relatively on target. You'll get your CCIP, your targeting cue, on target. You'll depress the trigger halfway, and what that does, it actually stabilizes the aircraft. DCS does a great job of modeling this, by the way. So the aircraft will come in, you're sort of doing one of these numbers, you get on target, and you depress the trigger halfway, and you'll feel it just go, and the aircraft just locks in, man. All control surfaces, all wiggling just stops, and you're just like, yeah, it's time. And then when you squeeze it the rest of the way, well, bad things happen on the ground. And that's just specifically to the A10. But the dual stage triggers are a really big deal, and they're useful in multiple aspects and scenarios of flight, especially for combat, like I said. Adjustments to any anatomical parameters. So this is pretty interesting. I wish that I could blow this screen up. Maybe we can just zoom it in. Let's see here. Does that really help much? Let's see what we get here. It helps a little bit. So you guys can see, let's see here, the stop with the 7 height positions, okay? The premium plastic alloy and aluminum construction we were talking about, the 1x brake lever with the high quality bearings. Twist grip, okay, with an adjustable damper. So twist grip, this is also means that this is a great starting point for anyone who may not have rudder pedals. The only time that I would say that twist grip is a real struggle, to be completely honest, and really doesn't have a place, is with helicopters. I think twist grip with helicopters specifically is really hard, because you're trying to already make those small minor corrections in a helicopter. Remember, with a helicopter, less is more. In a helicopter, you know, I fly with just these fingers 9 times out of 10. These are the only ones applying any kind of pressure to the grip when you're flying a helicopter, because you want those movements to be real gentle, real light, real short. Okay, and so when you're trying to do that and twist, you know, to add your anti-torque, obviously that makes it difficult in a helicopter. In any other scenario, I think twist grips work perfectly fine. And for example, in dogfighting, if you're doing some sort of warbird exercise, even a Microsoft Flight Simulator flying a warbird, or something like the F-14 Tomcat. The F-14 Tomcat, for many who may not know, doesn't have ailerons. It's got spoilerons. And so it uses a ton of rudder activity in order to navigate the aircraft around. So you're on the rudder pedals a lot with an F-14. And actually, I have found, and of course, opinions vary. By the way, throw your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. But if you fly the F-14 with a twist grip, it's almost easier, because it's a lot easier to, as you're in the turn, as you bring yourself into a bank, and you know that you need to bring the aircraft into tighter of a roll, it's a lot easier to sort of associate that twist grip to compensate, right? Or to add further roll into the aircraft. I'll let you guys go ahead and read through, if you guys want to pause here, and you can read through the comprehensive technical specifications. The base is the next piece I want to talk about. Now, this is going to come off weird, and it's not meant to, so bear with me, please. This is very similar to the Virpil CM3 base, and I am mentioning that as a good thing. Okay, you guys know how I am about Virpil if you've been watching this channel for any length of time. I swear by their products, and this is a wonderful design. I think that they were very, very smart by going this route, and I hope that they have a lot of the same features in it, and you guys are going to see what we got. Replaceable cams and springs. Let me talk a little bit more about the design here. So the reason why I really like this design is because it is relatively small form factor. So you don't have this big giant brick that you got to try to figure out where you want to put. Now, I know that Thrustmaster, for example, with their, what was that thing called? it wasn't the AV8. Was it the AV8? It was their latest base they released. They were on the right path, but again, I just think that still fell short of where it needed to be, is why we didn't see much of it here on the channel, unfortunately. But this overall design makes it very, very nice to determine where you want to put it, moving it around, mounting it. It really limits, or I should say actually expands the mounting options for it, having a small form factor device like this. It looks like they're going with USB-C, which I'm actually really happy about. The one thing that I don't like about Virpil, this is probably one of the few things, and they're not the only ones who does this, by the way. There's a couple others that you do this mechanism, and I'm sure that there's a particular reason for it. I just don't like it. Is the connections they use. I can't remember what type of connections it calls, but it's got the 5 pins inside the ring. And obviously those are a lot harder to come by than a simple USB-C cable. So it's really nice seeing more and more developers going the route of USB-C. USB-C is currently, I would say, the connection of the time, right? You see it in your cell phones, you see it in iPads, you see it in WinWing products, you see it in the Bravo throttle quad. I mean, it's USB-C almost across the board. Portable monitors now are using strictly USB-C. You don't even need the HDMI cables anymore. So it's really nice, because how many USB-C cables do you have in your house right now, right? You know what I'm saying? So it makes it a lot easier to sort of get around those kind of situations. The replaceable cams and springs for force adjustment, critical. And what I like is that there is no mention of it being a separate purchase. One of the things that I really knocked WinWing for, the WinWing is another one who does absolutely fantastic work. But if you take, this is Virpil, by the way, this isn't WinWing. But if you take the cams that are in here from WinWing, specifying this is Virpil, I'm talking about WinWing, but the cams and springs in here is what they're talking about. Those from WinWing are a separate purchase. They don't come with the unit, and they're the only ones that I am aware of that does that. And so I don't like that, and I knocked them for it in my review video that, you know, this should be a part of the unit, right? You shouldn't have to buy these cams and adjustment things separately. They should come with the product. And so I'm glad that it seems like these guys are going the same way. This was an interesting one. Pitch angle adjustment. We have provided several pads for changing the angle of deviation from the stock. I like that. Okay, so that's going to change how it does this. So it's going to make it a lot more comfortable for your hand. A damping system. The base with a damper system does not limit the adjustment. Even if you need to fully fix the stock without returning to center, and we'll talk about why I would not want to go back to center in a minute here, the construction allows you to do this. Besides, a smooth ride without straining will lead to maximum results during flight. Fact. So if you don't want it to return to center, an example of where you would not want the stick to go back to its center position would be, again, flying a helicopter. Flying a helicopter, you know, when you trim it, it's very similar to an airplane as well, you know, depending on the type of trimming it's done, whether it's electronic trim or hydraulic trim. If you're doing a hydraulic trim, you'll actually feel the yoke move to its new position. On an electronic trim, something like an Airbus or something like that, you're not going to see the yoke move, or the flight stick move, I should say, to be more specific, or any kind of fly-by-wire aircraft. On F-16, you're not going to feel the stick move. I mean, the stick only moves that much to begin with, but you guys get the point. Where with a helicopter, using like the force trim in it, what you'll typically do is position your cyclic to wherever you want, and when you trim it, you let go and the stick's going to stay there. Okay, so I really like that aspect, and that's an example of where you wouldn't want it to return to center that I can think of, at least. Powerful microprocessor. The powerful and modern STM32 microprocessor creates all of the conditions for precise position control with the fastest possible response. I do have to say, I mean, modern tech, go tech. Like, there are so many options now, and the hardware is so powerful now that, I mean, why would you not? Wide range of adjustments, table fasteners. These are things that, for me, are pretty standard, so we're not going to go into them in huge depth, but you guys can read them. There are certainly some things worth noting here. Strength and lightness. This is a big one. Are you buying an aircraft carrier that's going to sit on your desk? The structure is produced of high-quality aluminum. It combines the main qualities of a mount, strength, lightness, and rigidity. So yeah, I mean, aluminum is obviously going to be significantly lighter than any kind of metal platform. Overall dimensions, you guys can take a look at that. It's 200 millimeters, 80 millimeters by 410 millimeters long. So 410 millimeters, what? I would guess that we're probably looking somewhere in... I got to make sure my camera's following the right hand. It's always weird looking at yourself. I would probably guess somewhere in probably that range, probably close to that for the throttle, somewhere this big. You figure my print bed is 256 millimeters, which puts it right about here, give or take. So 410, yeah, probably right to the top of the camera. From the, looks like probably I would say from, you know, about here to about here would be right around 410. So it's a very long throttle, but the throttle is actually something that I really enjoy. Look at that movement range. It's huge. And again, that's actually a good thing. When you have a large movement like that, when you have a huge throw like that, you get much more finite control. Yes, it requires more action on the pilot, but you get more control of the engine power. You're getting far better control of your engine power, which means far better flight precision, far better speed management, and power management, especially if you are someone who likes the combat aspect and does something, you know, like air-to-air refueling, flying in formation, maintaining your speeds on approach, etc. These are all things that are coming into play here. Now, you have 8 functional OLED display buttons. We're going to talk about all those in a minute. The OLED display in each button is responsible for representation of static images and animations. Apart from this, we added 5-way rotary switch to the control panel that raised the total number of unique buttons to 40. So just like we've seen a couple different products do, you have 8 buttons that are digital, it sounds like, on OLED display. You have 8 buttons. You turn, and they all do 8 different things, right? You turn your rotary switch to position 2. Now all of those 8 buttons can do something completely different. So you have 8 buttons, 5 modes, or 5 profiles. Let's call them profiles. That's probably the best way to think about it. So in profile 1, these 8 buttons do XYZ. In profile 2, these 8 buttons do ABC, right? And so the only thing that you'd have to pay attention to is what profile you're in. But like in profile 1, you could have it for all of your lights, external lights, your starting parameters, whatever it may be. Profile 2, it could be anything from your autopilot controls, things like that, anything that you would use after takeoff. Profile 3, all those could be master arms, etc., etc. Right? You guys get where I'm going with this. 2 4-way hats and 3 2-way hat switches with tension control. Tension control, that's interesting. To equip the throttle grip, we selected Alps Alpine hats with 4-way and 2-way controls. Owing to such tools, every click will be accurate and precise. If you need to adjust the pressing force, just adjust this or just replace the springs. But for an even more complete immersion in tactile sensations, we use branded caps. Huh, I'll be damned. So you can actually adjust the tension of the buttons on the hats. That's interesting. And then 2 4-way encoders with push. All right, so an encoder, you turn it left, you turn it right, and then you can push it in. It's a knob. Okay, for those of you who don't know what an encoder is. I know I didn't until I started getting into designing my own flight equipment, is why I mentioned that. The linear mechanism, this I really like a lot. I like this. I've mentioned it multiple times. I'm not going to go into a huge tangent on it again. You guys, I've told you why, but look at the size of that throttle grip. Let me bring that up. Look at the size of that. I like that. I have a huge hand, first off. So I'm already excited about that. You can see quite a few buttons. And as much as this looks different, that looks extremely comfortable. This under configuration here, under your palm configuration, that's almost the idea behind it, is you're going to be able to rest this part of your wrist on it. So you're going to be, and because it's on a linear axis and not a rotational axis, you're going to get a lot more comfort out of here and extend it into your forearm for many more hours of gameplay without even noticing. It's going to be like, I mean, you'd be able to set it. It'd be almost like resting your arm the entire time on an armrest. It's going to feel far more comfortable than anything that I've seen yet out. I'll give them props on that. That's actually a really, really unique design, which is probably why you see it in a real aircraft. The carriage moves on bearings. That's a new design. Along the rail to ensure smooth and precision motion. My only concern with this, as I'm going to say right now, and this will be something that maybe, the developer can respond to, hopefully in the comments below. Be watching for that, you guys. Make sure that you guys come back and check this video out again later. To the developer, if you guys see this, please make sure to join on the Discord. My Discord is down in the channel below, or the description below. That way you can come answer questions anyone who might have there as well. We'd love to have you. But my only thing about this is, what about cleaning it? So, for example, I live in Tucson, Arizona. I don't know how well this is going to show. You guys can sort of see that dust already. I cleaned this 3 days ago. I have to dust here it's almost every other day. Now, some of that is I'm in a house that the air vents have never been cleaned. I'm finally getting the ductwork clean. I rent, unfortunately, at the moment. But the air ducts are finally going to be clean, so that's part of it. But the big part is just dust in general, is my curiosity about that. What about time to clean it? Because those bearings are going to bog up. Those bearings are going to clog up. They're going to get dust. They're going to get lint. They're going to get things inside it. That's just the nature of an environment like this, for example, where you have a lot of dust. That'd be my only concern there, is I hope that there is a way to pull that off and clean it out. And I don't mind that. That is a byproduct of where I live. That has nothing to do with the product, right? I chose to live in the desert. I should say stay in the desert. I was born here, so. Okay, and you guys can see the interaction with this structure is carried out through a load cell. How does this work? This is pretty awesome. I was reading this yesterday. First, you need to apply force to the handle so that the sensor fixes the required value. Then electric motors start to give way. Check this out, you guys. And the mechanism launches. At the same time, a powerful electric motor will not allow you to move the grip under the condition that such a function is configured. Obviously, this technical feature opens up new simulation features for you. For example, you can select any simulation option for all the detents and adjust the forces for entering and exiting the detent. What does that mean? That means that now, through software and electronic resistance, you can set your afterburner detents. Okay? So instead of having a physical hardware, you're going to be able to set in the software, if I'm reading this right, and this is the way that I'm interpreting this, is we're going to power up to mill power. For those of you who don't know, mill power is as fast, or the maximum engine power produced by a, for example, a fighter jet without using the afterburners. Okay, so it is raw engine power without the blowers on, is what we call them. So we're going to come up and we're going to reach that point of mill power, and then I can set in the software the amount of force or resistance required for me to create that detent. And then I can just simply push through it by exceeding that required force, is the way that I'm reading this. And it's all done electronically through force feedback motors, it sounds like. And this isn't force feedback in the aspect of we're not getting anything back from the SIN. This is force feedback as we're getting something from the device. The device is pushing against us to stop us from executing XYZ, right? In this case, the detent position. Now, this will work for anything. You know, if you're flying the Airbus, you'd probably be able to set multiple positions for that if you were using this for an airline configuration. Like I said, I'm going to keep mentioning those kind of flight parameters as well, because I believe HOTAS is the best all-around option for someone who likes to fly everything. Right, so I'm going to keep mentioning those commercial aircraft and general aviation features that could come in handy. Okay, it can be sharp or smooth with different distribution of, here it is, of effort or with increasing effort. Often the detents are felt as small vibration and give a physical signal about the transition of the throttle grip to one of the sectors. So again, the idea behind it is it's going to be a real quick, real light, very noticeable change in the behavior of the throttle that lets you know you're at the detent, right? You can adjust the specific section of the movement with certain force and recognize the position of the throttle. Dude, that's sick. That's innovative. And again, this is part of why I wanted to make sure to announce it. This is sick. The mechanism with an electric motor is a reliable assistant in simulating the number of adjustment options of the settings during flight. So I'm curious to, I can't wait. The throttle, I'll admit right now, I'm more excited for the throttle than I am for the grip, but that's because I probably have 10 grips sitting on the shelves here, right? So that's just history. But I'm very, very excited for this throttle. This throttle is amazing. And the configuration software. Using all of the tools for the WYRIX 35T and the 35G, so we have the throttle and the grip, you can deal with both settings and flights easily. And we can check out the detailed data here. So there is the layout of the grip. Here's the layout of the throttle. And again, that is such a long throw on the throttle. I love how many buttons we have here. And you can see it breaks it down to what the different each one is. So you have slider axis, analog mini stick with the push, so that's going to be your target designator for those of you who are already wondering when that is. All right, let's get into the shipping. We will deliver our products from existing distribution centers in Poland. What's more, our couriers or our courier partners such as UPS, FedEx, DPD, and DHL will also be assisting with shipping goods. So that's awesome. Please ship mine UPS. Oh my gosh, I just had a nightmare with FedEx. Anyway, and finally the conclusion. I agree with this. I like this part. We didn't just create another grip and control panel. We have changed the concept of virtual piloting and taken it to a new level. I agree with that with the throttle, 100%. Our products are the result of accurate calculations and tests over several months. They transmit the sensations that are maximum close to real flight and are equally aimed at novice pilots and experienced simmers. So something for a little bit of everything for everybody is included in this. All right, so we have the ad. In this video, we're showcasing the real working prototypes. These aren't renders or concept. Every component is shown as fully functional and built to match the final production quality. Look at that. This is really impressive. Really impressive. See the grip. You guys are welcome to check this out. There you guys go. So again, huge shout out to these guys. I think this is a fantastic product. I think it absolutely has a place here. The throttle, I think, is the most innovative, but it is definitely innovative. And mercy, like, I'm really excited for the throttle. Really excited for the throttle. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let me know if this is something that you think that you're going to go ahead and back. Really curious to hear you guys' opinions on it. At the very least, I hope you're just as excited for this product to make it to the field of flight simulation as I am. I really wish these guys the best of luck. I hope this works out for them. I think that they are on a great path, and they are genuinely thinking outside the box and trying to bring a new flight sim experience to all of us. As always, my friends, stay safe and healthy. To the WYRIX team, best of luck to you. I hope this works out, and I will continue to advertise this on my channel, as I think that you guys are absolutely worth following and supporting. Great job. I'll catch you guys in the next one.